Quite often when I play the Luftwaffe Ground Forces Commander, I don't build any Fallschirmjäger, going for Obersoldaten instead. And it's a very common question why I do that. So today we'll be taking a look at the differences between Obersoldaten and Fallschirmjäger and why you might want to pick one of them over the other. What's the difference between these two? So we're going to start things off by comparing their fully upgraded firepower head to head. In a long range out of cover engagement, the Obersoldaten win 100% of the time, generally with a bit over half health remaining. And then in a close range engagement, now the Fallschirmjäger win 11 out of 12 times, generally with around a third of their health remaining. So this is the main reason why I usually go for Obersoldaten instead of Fallschirmjäger. I feel like the 1v1 map pool generally favours long range out of cover engagements, especially in the late game when a lot of the world objects have been crushed, so this is where the Obers can really shine. However, if you're playing a 4v4 map in the city section with a lot more close quarters engagements, maybe this makes the Fallschirmjäger the better option. The next most important factor in the decision is probably the Fallschirmjäger Camouflage, so first I'll explain exactly how it works. Fallschirmjäger have access to the camouflage immediately with no upgrades required. For the camouflage to activate, the majority of the squad has to be in light or heavy cover, so you can have one model standing out of cover and the Fallschirmjäger can still go into camouflage. Fallschirmjäger will also be revealed if an enemy unit is 7 range away, but if they don't get shot at while they are revealed, they can instantly recloak once the enemy unit is far enough away again, and if they do get shot at, it will be 4 seconds after the shooting has stopped before they can recloak again. When Fallschirmjäger attack after being camouflaged, they get a first strike bonus shown by this indicator here that gives them 25% extra accuracy for 5 seconds. A nice little damage boost. At Vet 2, the Fallschirmjäger's camouflage gets upgraded such that they can now move around while in cover and stay hidden in camouflage. However, once the majority of the Fallschirmjäger squad is out of cover, they will instantly get decloaked. They don't get that extra couple seconds of cloak time that allow them to move from one piece of cover to the next, such as snipers or commandos have. At Vet 5, their camouflage gets upgraded again. This time it's to the first strike bonus that goes from 25% to 50% extra accuracy for 5 seconds, allowing them to really shred enemy squads. And if you airdrop Fallschirmjäger onto cover, they will be camouflaged as they are dropping down, so this makes them much safer against nearby enemy units. So if we repeat the long range out of cover engagement, this time with the Fallschirmjäger though having their first strike bonus, now they win 8 out of 12 times, giving them the edge. However, if we put the 2 squads behind heavy cover, this will massively blunt the impact of that first strike bonus, and now the Obers take the advantage, winning 20 out of 23 times. Throwing a cheeky bundle grenade from camouflage can be a great way of getting a wipe on an enemy squad, and the camouflage can hide you from snipers, helping you reduce their manpower bleed a significant amount. Or perhaps even allow you to set up an ambush on the sniper, though I generally feel that Jaeger Lights are more suited to this role, especially in the early stages of the game, since they have a much shorter time to kill, giving the enemy less time to react. Though once Fallschirmjäger are fully upgraded and well vetted, they can also burst down snipers pretty damn quickly. So with the camouflage playing such a large role in the Fallschirmjäger's performance, this is again where I think Fallschirmjäger can make more sense in team games than they do in 1v1, because the huge number of craters made by all the artillery in these modes means light cover is available everywhere for the Fallschirmjäger, allowing them to use their camouflage almost all the time without putting in much effort. So now let's take a look at a couple of the abilities that the Obersoldaten have that the Fallschirmjäger do not, starting out with the Booby Trap. This costs 40 munitions and can only be used on connected friendly territory points. It takes 16 seconds to plant, and then when an enemy squad enters the capture circle, it will detonate, generally dropping one model from that squad and doing over half health damage to the rest. If multiple squads enter the point at the same time, it can hit them all, as I expertly demonstrate here.
Oh boy!
That one booby trap just killed everything I had. The booby trap will not go off if you still have a squad or team weapon inside the circle, so you can use this to your advantage by waiting for the enemy squad to get clumped up on cover and then leaving the circle, causing the booby trap to do significantly more damage. At Vet 4, the Obersoldaten get the Suppressing Fire ability. This is free and gives them suppression for 12 seconds. However, it also halves their damage while it is active, and that's before the targeted squad even gets suppressed, which will give them a received accuracy bonus, further reducing the Obersoldaten's damage. So while Suppressing Fire is active, the Obersoldaten will do very little damage. Suppressing Fire doesn't give the Obersoldaten any AoE suppression, so they won't be able to suppress a blob like a heavy machine gun team will be able to. Technically, they can suppress more than one squad, but this relies on the Obersoldaten randomly targeting different squads, because as soon as you try to manually target a different squad, the Suppressing Fire ability deactivates. So because of the heavily reduced damage and the lack of AoE suppression, this ability doesn't see a huge amount of use. Probably the ideal circumstance to use it in is when a close quarters specialist is trying to charge in on the Obersoldaten, because once they are suppressed, their threat level is greatly reduced. At Vet 5, Obersoldaten get access to permanent sprint while out of combat. This is great for zipping around the map, capping up territory, though as soon as you get shot at, this will deactivate. It's also great for returning to the front line after retreating on those massive 4v4 maps. So depending on how you value the two squads' different abilities, it can sway you to pick one of them over the other. Personally, if I'm up against a sniper, I do favour the Fallschirmjäger to make use of their camouflage, but apart from that, I generally do favour the Obersoldaten. Another very important factor is the timing that these two different units arrive on the battlefield. Fallschirmjäger unlock at 2 command points, and I look back on a bunch of my OKW games and this seems to happen at around 5 minutes 30. Whereas when I play a no-light vehicle fast Schwerpanzer headquarters strategy, trying to get those obers out as quickly as possible, I tended to start construction on them at 12 minutes, so the Fallschirmjäger can hit the battlefield much earlier. But it's not that simple. Using a 1v1 viable build order, I tended to not be able to afford to build Fallschirmjäger until the 9-minute mark, so that significantly closes the gap between the two squads. Also, Fallschirmjäger can't upgrade to their 3rd and 4th FG42 rifles until the Schwerpanzer headquarters is down, so this significantly limits their DPS until that time. At the 9-minute mark, mainline infantry squads are often hitting Vet 2 as well, so let's have a look at the performance of these unupgraded Fallschirmjäger against some of their most common opponents. Starting things off, we have the Fallschirmjäger against single bar riflemen at Vet 2 long range. Here the Fallschirmjäger won 18 out of 24 times, generally with around quarter of their health remaining. And then repeating this but now at close range, here the riflemen won 11 out of 12 times, generally with around a third of their health remaining. So this does kind of force the US player into getting weapon upgrades if they want to keep up in this engagement, but that's pretty common in the metagame at the moment. And with those weapon upgrades, the riflemen do perform very well in this engagement in the early stages before the Fallschirmjäger really start to scale up. Against Vet 2 bolstered infantry sections out of cover long range, here the Fallschirmjäger won 8 out of 12 times, generally with around quarter of their health remaining. And then at close range, the Fallschirmjäger won 10 out of 12 times, this time with around half of their health remaining. So better than they did against the riflemen, though that is without the cover bonus active for the British player, but by the same token also no ambush bonus for the Fallschirmjäger. Against Vet 2 Penal Battalions long range, the Penal Battalions won 11 out of 12 times, generally with around quarter of their health remaining. And at close range, here the Penal Battalions won 9 out of 12 times, so a smaller margin of victory, but still a win at both ranges, which means they'll give trouble to the Fallschirmjäger. And then against guards that have their DP light machine guns upgraded, at long range the guards won 100% of the time, generally with around a third of their health remaining. And then at close range, now the Fallschirmjäger win 100% of the time, with around a third of their health remaining. So no surprises there, the Fallschirmjäger want to be close up against the guards. So overall, I feel these engagement results are not particularly impressive for the Fallschirmjäger, and it really does show that the earlier you can get them the better, so they don't come in with such a big vet disadvantage. And this is again where Fallschirmjäger may make more sense in team games than they do in 1v1, because even though your command points will probably accumulate a little bit more slowly, you might have some more leeway in your build order so that you can actually bring them in earlier. Fallschirmjäger used to be a lot more popular in 1v1 back when mechanized trucks were the dominant strategy. There you would go for both the Lux and the Puma, spending a lot of fuel on light vehicles, thus heavily delaying your Schwerpanzer headquarters and the Obers. However, in team games, going for the mechanized truck first is still quite popular, so you can get access to a very fast walking Stuka. And with those kind of build orders, the Fallschirmjäger do make more sense. The Fallschirmjäger coming in earlier does give them a head start on gaining veterancy over the Obers as well. Called in at the 9-minute mark, the Fallschirmjäger were roughly 1 star of veterancy at the 12-minute mark when the potential fast Obers could be hitting the battlefield. So this vet advantage will give them a slight performance boost over the Obers until the Obers manage to catch up. So overall, when it comes to timing and build orders, personally I didn't really like the Fallschirmjäger. I felt like they didn't have enough impact for how much they cost to reinforce, and I often felt like I would prefer to get an MG34 instead of the Fallschirmjäger. But if you can get them earlier, or you're delaying your Schwerpanzer headquarters tech by a lot, then they do start to make a lot more sense. When a member of a squad is using a slot weapon, such as the LMG34 that the Obers are firing here, and they die, the weapon is instantly transferred over to another model in the squad to continue firing. And this mechanic is very important when deciding between these two squads. Here is the DPS of a Fallschirmjäger FG42 at max range, and assuming that they are fully upgraded, so the squad has 4 of these, here is the total DPS of the squad as they drop down in model count. And here is the DPS of the Obersoldaten at max range. At full strength they have 3 Kar98s and 1 LMG34. So here is the total DPS of the squad at max range as they start to drop in model count. So now if we compare the two squads, you can see initially at 4 models the Fallschirmjäger have slightly more DPS than the Obers, but then from 3 models down to 1 the Obersoldaten have more DPS at long range. So if you can afford to push your retreats later over the course of a long engagement, the Obersoldaten can end up doing significantly more damage because of this weapon transfer mechanic. If we take a look at the reinforcement cost of the two squads, Obersoldaten costing 40 manpower per model to reinforce, and Fallschirmjäger slightly cheaper at 36 manpower per model. So if the squad is mainly dying to explosives such as tanks or artillery fire, maybe you want the cheaper reinforcement cost of the Fallschirmjäger. But if they're dying more to small arms fire, here the lower target size of the Obersoldaten, increasing their effective health in small arms fire engagements, makes their higher reinforcement cost less important. And finally, when it comes to ease of use, you can attack move the Obersoldaten around the map and expect them to win a 1v1 against whatever they run into. And this makes the Obersoldaten very easy to use. Whereas if you use the Fallschirmjäger in this fashion, they may still struggle against some of the allied long-range specialists. This means they need more attention to get the most out of them. There you go guys, now you understand why to pick one of these squads over the other, and if you want to support the continued production of these videos, I hope you consider coming on board as a Patreon backer.